Hi, everyone. This is Liz from the Chillicothe and Ross County Public Library, and I'm here with Johnna from the OSU Extension Office. We're here for a virtual cooking class. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead, Johnna.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be back with everybody. If you haven't ever attended one of these classes, my name is Johnna Miller, and as Liz said, I work for the Ohio SNAP Ed program through Ohio State University and the Ross County Extension Office. And we're going to talk a little bit today, well, this whole series actually, about a topic that's pretty much prominent in all of our brains right now is trying to save money at the grocery store, right? Food prices have really gone up, so I'm going to touch on a few things every week about ways to make food stretch a little further, maybe save a little bit of money when you go to the store, ways to plan and prepare things so you can feed your family just a little less money and maybe even a little less effort. So, Liz, if you want to go ahead and pop my little screen up there with my introduction, I can.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
I also wanted to mention if anybody has any questions during the class, just go ahead and put those in the comments, either on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be able to see them and answer those questions.
All right. So as I explained, I work for Ohio SNAP Ed through Ohio State University and Extension Office, and we base most of our programming off of the choosemyplate.gov. If you're not familiar with that, that is what used to be back in my day the food pyramid, but it is the USDA's and the government's way of encouraging people to eat all 5 food groups and give healthy ways to incorporate all the 5 food groups into our daily diet. And then the celebrateyourplate.org is a great website that SNAP Ed has to share good recipes with you. A lot of the recipes that I do through my programming come from this website. We have things on there, tips and hints on ways to do things in the kitchen. There are even some worksheets for the kids to keep them busy if you want to, and everything is nutrition based, so it works really well if you're trying to just, bring a little bit of awareness to you and your family's nutrition education. So that's a good place to go check out that as well. So I want to start off by going over our recipe. I'm going to start the recipe first and get it underway, so that way while it's cooking a little bit, I will talk about 2 things, as I said, about some ways to do some budgeting. So today we're going to do a vegetarian chili. And this is a quick, I call it a pantry recipe, because all the items on this recipe are going to be things that most people have already got in their pantry. And I'll talk a lot about that because, okay, if anybody's looked outside, it's snowing, right? It's always nice to have a well-stocked pantry on bad days like this, because, if you catch yourself with, I don't have something, I don't want to run out to pick up something to eat because the roads are bad. And maybe you don't have all those fresh vegetables in the refrigerator to make a soup or something like this. So by going to your pantry and pulling out a few cans, you can make a really delicious little chili soup here. So we're going to talk about that. So our ingredients
are... Remind everyone that recipe is linked in the description, both on YouTube and on Facebook. So whichever you're in, you can get that link.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go over the ingredients here. So the first ingredient is just some everyday non-stick cooking spray, 1 onion, which I've already cleaned, and these are rather large veggies. I'm not going to use all of these. A bell pepper, a 15-ounce can of no salt added. It says whole tomatoes on the recipe. I don't like whole tomatoes as well to cook with, so I always buy the diced. They cook up a little bit better. A can of 6 ounces of tomato paste. A can of no salt added. See the no salt added there? Just corn, no salt added black beans, and no salt added kidney beans. So real super simple stuff. If you don't have the no salt added and you want to decide, okay, I want to start cutting back on my salt a little bit, you can always take a can of just regular corn, beans, whatever you got, rinse it under some running water in a colander, and you're going to take a lot of that salt out of it, because the salt usually is in the brine that's on the vegetables, not so much in the vegetables. So that's always a good way to get that out of there. And then we're going to have a little bit of chili powder, some cayenne, which this is my homegrown. I grow my own cayennes in the summertime, dry them and put them to my blender and blend them up that way. The store bought's just fine. And then if you want to make this a Cincinnati style, like one of the big fast food chains that everybody likes so well, you can always add in a half a teaspoon of cinnamon to give it that extra little flavor. Personally, I'm not a big fan, and since I'm going to be eating this, I'm going to leave the cinnamon out. That's one really good thing about these recipes as well. You can substitute in things that your family does or does not like and make it your own. So that's one good thing about it. And then just 2 cups of water. That's going to be our broth. So to start off with, like I said, these are rather large vegetables. I just got them because they were, I can use the other half of these for another recipe later on in the week. So when the recipe calls for an onion or a pepper, they're usually talking about a medium size. So that's usually about the size of your fist is a medium size. Now, if you're, a 6'5" man, maybe that's going to be a little bit larger than that. So guesstimate it, but my fist is about the size of a medium pepper or medium onion. So I'm going to start off by cutting this onion in half. I've already cleaned this and scrubbed it up with a vegetable brush. And then I'm just going to start off by cutting my onion up into slices and then dice it up. And you want to get it into pieces that are going to cook up pretty even. And it's going to come out to probably about 3/4 to a cup of onions after you cut this up, okay? That wasn't the best way to do that, but I did it. Quick tip, when you're cutting onions or garlic or anything, it's going to leave a smell on your hands once you're done. If you take your hands and wet them under some running water and then take a little bit of just table salt, sprinkle them on your hands, rub them together real fast and rinse them off real good. A lot of times, most of the time, I found it takes that smell right off your hands so you don't have to smell that onion and garlic for the rest of the day. Okay, and same with the pepper. I'm just going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to take the inside, just grab it, squeeze it with my fingers, and we'll take it over out of the sink, pull that out. And there I have my pepper clean and ready to go. I'm going to cut it up into strips. Cut that extra little bit of what they call pith out of there. You don't want that in there. And we're going to dice these up into pieces that are real similar in size as to your onion, okay? Now, if you don't have the pepper on hand, you can always leave those out. You can always add in any other vegetables you want. This is a vegetarian chili, so you can put any kind of vegetables that you want in there. It doesn't have to necessarily be what's in the recipe. Another quick tip to always have peppers and onions around that are quick to throw into recipes. If I find them on a good sale, I will cut them up just like I'm doing right now, lay them out on a cookie sheet, and you guys have probably seen me do that before if you've watched my classes before. Throw them in the freezer, freeze them up pretty quick, and leave them in there for about 20 minutes, and then toss them into a baggie, and you'll have frozen peppers and onions to use for the next 2 or 3 months right out of your freezer, no problem. Okay, so next I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to turn the burner on underneath my pan, and I'm going to take my cooking spray and just spray just a little bit in the bottom of my pan. And then I'm going to take my onions and my peppers, and I'm going to scrape them into this pan. And you're going to let these cook until they get, the onions start turning just a little bit translucent, which means they're a little bit clear. You can see through them. I mean, not completely soft, but they're translucent. Let me turn the fire up here just a little bit so it starts cooking quick. Won't take but just a couple minutes for that to do that. And in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I have already gone through and I got a little colander, and I had drained all of my corn, my beans, and put them in a bowl and got them ready, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and measure out my spices. Sometimes you'll see me, I will measure over top of a bowl when I'm actually cooking. Not the best idea to do. You want to make sure that you measure your spices over something that's not the dish that you're actually cooking in, because it's real easy to spill and then over season your dish. So we're going to use about, let's see, it calls for 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder. And you want it to be a level teaspoon. So there's 1. I'm going to get a smaller jar for this, and then half. And then it calls for a teaspoon of cayenne. Now, if you don't want your soup to be really super hot, you might want to take that down just a little bit. So I'm going to use about 3/4, not quite a whole teaspoon, because being as this is homegrown cayenne, it is a little warmer than what you buy in the stores. And then you also would want to put your, if you want to make, like I said, the Cincinnati style chili, you're going to want to put your cinnamon in as well. So I'm going to stir this around. Like I said, it won't take this very long at all to start sauteing down. And then our ingredients or calls for, okay, you put your veggies in the pot, get them going, and then you just stir in the rest of the ingredients. You're going to want to put in your water first so you don't scorch your beans and your corn when you put it in. I've already pre-measured my 2 cups of water here. If you would rather have a little more flavor, you can always use some broth, like a beef broth or a chicken broth, whatever you would want. But by doing that, you're going to add in an extra bit of some sodium and some more calories. So, and that's also going to take away from being a vegetarian version. So that's, keep that in mind as well. Then I'm going to take my combination of my corn and beans here. And this does call for, the recipe calls for 2 cans of black beans. I only used 1 because I'm making a smaller pot of this. That was how I cut the recipe down just a little bit. Put that in there. I'm going to take my can of tomato paste, which I've already taken the lid off of. I'm going to find a spoon here. I'm going to put our tomato paste in. And a lot of people will try to say, okay, can I use tomato sauce instead of tomato paste? Well, tomato sauce is going to be thicker, and you're not going to get, or tomato sauce will be thinner, and so you're not going to get that thickening agent into your soup. And it's also not going to have as much tomato flavor. So if you use a tomato sauce, you may want to reduce the water down just a little bit and use maybe a larger can of tomato sauce versus the tomato paste, okay? And then I've also got a can of no salt diced tomatoes. Always make sure when you have a canned goods, you bring them home from the store, before you use them, take a clean washcloth and wash off the top of those. These things have been transported across, probably from other parts of this country, and they've sat in warehouses, and you never really know what's on top of those cans. So it's always a good idea to wipe them off. And I'm just going to dump those tomatoes in there. And the last thing I'm going to do is add in my seasoning. And I'm still using this little dinky spoon. Should be using my bigger spoon here. And you just want to get down in there and stir it around. And let me bring it over here so you guys can see. Really yummy looking there, okay? So we're just, now that this is all together.
That looks basically colorful, Johnna.
It is. That's what I really like about putting the corn and the bell pepper in there. It really makes it really pretty. And we all know that especially kids, the prettier it is, the better they're going to eat it. So we're just going to let that set and do its thing. It's going to let the tomato sauce or tomato paste blend in with all the water and the vegetables. It's going to give that chili powder and that cayenne a little bit of time to cook down in through there. And you're just going to have a nice simple chili. Like I said, this is a vegetarian version, which is good because I know a lot of people this time of year will make resolutions that they want to maybe get more vegetables in their diet, maybe cut down on some of the saturated fats out of their diet. So you can have this for a vegetarian version. Or, if you want to have that meat in there, you can always put this in a larger pan, obviously, but you can add in like 3/4 pound of ground beef. Try to get a lean, like a 90-10 version, like ground beef. Or you could use ground turkey and put that in there as well, which would just make it a regular chili. But that went together so super quick, and if it sits there now and simmers for about 30 minutes, you're going to have a great chili, and it's going to be really good to serve with some crusty bread, some whole wheat bread. It'd be really good. Okay, Liz, so if you want to go on to our shopping tips here. Can you put those up on the screen? Perfect, thank you. So just some ways that we can make those grocery dollars get a little more bang for their buck. So the first one is just to buy your foods in the simplest form. That means instead of buying that pre-cut fruit, that pre-cut vegetables, they're really convenient, they're really quick and easy. but you're also paying for the labor to have those processed for you. So if you can buy the whole stalk of celery or the whole pineapple and cut it up yourself, you're going to get more fruits and vegetables that way, and you're going to get it for a lot cheaper. Just recently, they had pineapples on sale at one of the local grocery stores, and they were on sale for like 87 cents. So you got, I mean, nice sized pineapple, which was probably, I think when I cut mine up, I got about 3 cups of pineapple out of that one little pineapple. If you would have went over to the prepared pineapple in the produce department, you could pay up to $6 for that same amount, or maybe less, of pineapple. Or go into the canned foods, which is, canned pineapple is good if you don't have fresh available. But for a 15-ounce can, you're going to pay close to probably $1.69, $1.89 a can. So you're going to get more. It's going to be fresh. The only thing you're going to be out is a little bit of effort more to, to get them prepared ready that way. And then to buy in bulk when items are on sale, as I was talking about earlier with the peppers. Okay, if you find a really good deal on the peppers and the onions, go ahead and buy them up. Buy as much as you think you're going to use for about 3 months. Take them home, chop them all up, do the flash freeze in the freezer. What I do is just line a cookie sheet with wax paper, spread them out there on a single layer, pop them in the freezer, freeze them up till they're just starting where they won't stick together when you put them in a bag. Pop them in a bag or a container, put them in the freezer, and all you have to do is just measure out whatever you need for your recipes for the next 2 or 3 months. Super simple, easy, and you save a lot of money that way. Buy small amounts more frequently on the fresh fruits and vegetables that just don't last as long. So, if you're buying bananas, for example, bananas, when you buy them, they're going to be good for maybe 4 to 5 days once you bring them home from the store. So you don't want to go buy, even if they're on sale, you don't want to buy about 5 bunches of bananas unless you've got a recipe or a way to use them up, because they're not going to last as long. So buy the things like that in smaller portions and what you're going to be able to use in a couple days. But again, there's the ways you can get around. If you have bananas getting brown, you can pop them in the freezer and then use them in smoothies. So there's always a way you can recycle them. And then buy in season. Well, obviously right now in Ohio, there's not really anything that we're growing that's in season. But in the groceries, there are things like kale comes to mind, sweet potatoes. You can find a lot of them right now. A lot of the root vegetables are going to be a lot cheaper in the grocery because they're bringing them in from other parts of the country, but they're still cheaper from the suppliers that they're getting them from because they just came out of the field. So buy in season. As spring rolls around, you're going to have things like your fresh greens are going to be coming into season, so you can get them. Berries, strawberries in the spring, everybody has those. So, buy them up when they're cheap. Use them you can freeze them up to use later. If you want to make your own desserts that you can freeze, do it that way. So buy things in season where you can get the better price. If you got a way to preserve them for future use, buy up more than you need right at the moment, and that will save you a lot of money. And then on the next slide, it talks about plan and cook smart. So I keep talking about freezing stuff. Now, like I've made this pot of soup, all right? It's going to be enough here to feed my husband and myself probably 2 to 3 times. This makes 6 servings. So, if we both have a bowl of soup, that's going to be 3 servings. So maybe I want to take half of this and pop it in a freezer-safe container, and then we can eat it later on down the road, a month or so, have this soup again. When you buy like a whole chicken, you're going to have leftovers. So plan, if you buy that chicken, you cook it on Sunday, maybe on Tuesday, you can make it into a casserole. You can make it into barbecue chicken for sandwiches, for lunch. Plan out your leftovers. Make sure that if you're going to buy a big piece of meat, because right now meat is the biggest expense when we go to the grocery, that there's no waste on that. You don't want to put it in the refrigerator and leave it sit there and throw it out after the 3 to 5 day window where your leftovers are not good any longer. So make sure you're using it up so you don't waste your money, and you can feed your family more economically that way. And then, again, anything that's going as far as produce or fruit or vegetables, as they start getting to the point where they're going to be maybe getting too ripe, you can use them to fruits. You can put them into bake. You can put them in smoothies. You can bake breads with them. Vegetables, you can freeze them up, or you can make a pot of vegetable soup and throw it in the freezer. Always plan out if you're going to have excess of something. Then stick to your list. Plan your meals ahead of time, and I actually am going to, Liz will be putting into the chat a little weekly menu planner. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to print these off, but just use something in the format. If you get a chance, click on that, and it'll show you, like, you'll have the week. Plan out your menus, and then go to the grocery with your list of what you're going to need to prepare those meals for the week, and try to stick to it. And don't go to the store hungry when you do go with that list, because you go in there hungry, you're going to, things that you normally wouldn't buy are going to jump off the shelf and fall in the bottom of your cart, like, those cookies or those chips, because you're hungry. Eat a little snack before you go into the grocery store. That way you won't go in there with your stomach dictating what you're putting in your cart. And then, if you have more of a food budget left over for a week, that's the week you're going to stock up. So if you go in and you got just a little extra money, and you're running low on canned goods, that's the week you stock up. Don't go in for the week is like, okay, I've got X amount of dollars, this is what I got to stick to. If you don't have the extra money, buy what you need for the week. But if you have a little extra, stock up with what's on sale, fill your pantry up so you can make these pantry meals like this soup that I'm making tonight. And then choose the store brands. Right now, I know a lot of the stores, I myself have come across that the store brands aren't being stocked quite as much as what the name brands are. I think that's a supply and demand thing. But the store brands, for the most part, are always going to be cheaper. So, make sure that you're checking out if it's green beans and maybe the name brand can is 89 cents and the store brand can is 69 cents. Sure, that's only 20 cents. But over a period of a year's time, 20 cents per can of canned vegetables, that's going to add up quite a bit. Now, if you don't like the store brand of something, and just because it's cheaper, don't make yourself buy it. If you're not going to use it, don't purchase it, because this is like same as throwing it down the drain if you're not going to use it. So, if you have, like, my husband will only eat one type of steak sauce, so it doesn't do me any good to buy that cheaper brand because he's not going to eat it. So, use what buy what your family's going to use, but don't be afraid to try the off brands, because a lot of times they're just as good, sometimes even better. And then you can always try canned and frozen vegetables in lieu of the fresh. Frozen is going to be your closest to fresh, and you can keep those in the freezer anywhere from 3 to 6 months with no problem if you buy them in the store or prepackaged in their packaging. And then, as I said, if you freeze it yourself, they usually last about 3 months without getting to where they lose their texture. Canned is going to stay in your pantry pretty much indefinitely. I mean, they do have expiration dates on them, and if a can becomes bulging or if it has a dent in it or something like that, you don't want to use it. But canned goods will last in your pantry usually at least 2 to 3 years. So don't be afraid to stock up on them to save some money. All right, Liz, we got some bubbling soup going on over here. And this is getting a really nice, let me bring you over so you guys can see. It's getting really nice and thick, and you can see all those good veggies in there. And boy, I can smell that cayenne. So yeah, it's a good thing I cut it back a little bit, because I think that would probably been just a little bit too strong if I had to put that whole teaspoon in there. But my theory is always you can season a little bit at a time. If you would have maybe put that whole teaspoon in there and you had a really hot cayenne, it'd be too spicy to eat. So then you might have a problem. So always start out with a little bit, and you can always add more. But if you start with a lot, you can't take it out. So go in baby steps. All right. Any questions, Liz?
We don't have any questions, but we did have one person say that she really loves watching these videos with her daughter, and so she did have us back.
Oh, great, great. Glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to take the opportunity too to mention, so this is, we're trying something a little bit different with this cooking series. So the first 3 classes, the first 3 Thursdays in January will be virtual. We'll be doing these videos. So you can access those from either the Facebook page or the YouTube page for the library. And I'll always add the recipes and other files to the description. So you mentioned the menu planner, that's already linked in the description for the event. But then our 4th class of the month is going to be in person at our Northside branch. And we're going to have a special cooking tool giveaway, but you have to have watched all the videos. You don't have to watch them live, but you have to watch all the videos in order to get that cooking tool. And we'll have a question each week.
Right. So if you got the question in the chat, that was going to be.
I have the question to show on screen here.
There you go. So there's the question of the week. So, and I really didn't cover this. I'm glad you brought that up, Liz, because I meant to cover this in the middle of the lesson. But beans are part of which food group? A, vegetables, B, protein, or C, both vegetables and protein. So I'm going to give you the answer, but I need you to either send this answer to my email, it's put there on the screen, and it should be a hyperlink in the chat, so you can just click right on that and it'll send it to me. And you're going to need to give me your name. That way we can track it that way. Or if you prefer, just write down your answers on a piece of paper, and then when you come to that class on the 27th, isn't it? Yes, the 27th at the Northside Library. Just bring that with you, and that's going to be your proof that you have all 4 questions and you have watched all 4 sessions to get your little prize. So, so the answer is C. It's both. Vegetable beans are vegetable because they grow in a garden on a plant, but then they also have a really high protein content, and they can be used as a replacement for protein. This is the way vegetarians and vegans get the protein in their diet, because we do need protein for muscle and a lot of different things in our diet. So it is essential to us to have protein in our diet. So beans are really good, and that's any kind of bean, kidney bean, black bean, lima beans, whatever kind of beans you want. They're going to have a nice high protein content. So that's the answer to our question of the week. And one last thing, Liz is also going to put in the chat a link to a survey. This is for for Ohio State's use. This is how we keep, we get a little bit of data from our classes, and this is how we keep the funding rolling so we can keep doing these kind of classes free in the community. Your name is not connected in any way. There's just a few simple questions, kind of a demographic type thing. If you would not mind clicking on that link, filling out the survey, and it will automatically go into my records, and we can record your answers that way. And there is one question there talking about services that you use. So make sure that, if your child, and most kids right now are getting free lunch at school because of the different programs that are being offered. So any programming, any assistance you may use within the community, as I said, this is all anonymous. Please click the boxes that pertain to you and your family, and that will really help me out a lot as far as our funding. All right. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about some ways to, I got to turn my soup down, guys. It is bubbling like crazy over here.
Are you going to do some up to show us?
I can. I was going to tell you, I'm probably going to put this soup because my husband, which, I love the fact I came home from work on Tuesday night, and he had made a super huge pot of chili for us to eat this week. And I thought, oh, that's wonderful, but I'm making chili Thursday for my class. So we got a lot of chili in this house right now. So I am going to put this soup after it settles down or cools down. You want to bring it down, and you don't want to leave it set out too much, but you want to cool it down. I'm going to put it in a container, and we are going to have it here in a couple of weeks when I pull it back out. Look at that, guys.
It's tasty.
Oh, it smells so good too. Like I said, that cayenne is really kicking up. I can, a little peanut butter sandwich, and I'm in there. I got me a good meal going on. And you've got 2 servings at least per bowl of vegetables. You should have anywhere from 3 to 5 servings of vegetables in your diet every day. So you're going to get 2 good servings just by eating about a cup of this soup. So it's great. And if you decide the beans is going to be in there, so you're going to have a serving of protein. So there's 2 of your food groups. You should try to get at least 3 food groups to every meal. So this is one little bowl of soup is going to satisfy 2 food groups for your daily requirements. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, I'm really super glad to be back with you guys. I have a ball doing these classes, and I hope everybody enjoys them. And if you have any questions later on, you can always pop them into the chat on either Facebook or YouTube, and Liz or I will see them. Or you've got my email on that link there too. Save that email. You can send any questions anytime, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can answer. And if I don't have the answer, I've got a whole team of experts behind me that can get any answer to just about any nutrition question you have. Okay?
All right. Thank you, Johnna. See you
next week. Thank you, Liz. See you guys. Bye-bye.